Hi, everyone. This is Ray Phillips of Precision Driving Analytics. And today I'm going to share with you one of the items that I use to analyze data that's just hugely powerful. And if you're not using it, then you're not getting the most out of your data. And they're called user profiles in AIM. They're called Workspaces in Motec and various other names and other software programs. I actually create these for clients, and normal cost is $249 for up to 10 of these. But if you watch this video, at the end, I'm going to give you a discount code that'll get you $50 off. So, like I said, if you're not using them, you're not getting the most out of your data. It's basically just a quick way of looking at different charts in between your sessions or overnight to make sure that you can analyze your data quickly and efficiently. So I'm going to go through a bunch of these here in AIM RS2 analysis, and I'm going to go through them pretty quick, but I also create all the math channels behind these user profiles where they're needed. So yeah, you get not only the user profiles, but you get a bunch of math channels. And once you have all this stuff, go to any track, you can pull them up and just quickly see your data. So I'm going to get rid of this video since it covers some of the data, and then I'll bring it back up at the end. All right, so the first one we're going to bring up here is what I call the big picture graph. So it's just got a lot of different stuff, and mainly what I'm looking at is engine temperatures and pressures and things like that. So you can see it's RPM, speed, throttle, and then we have air temp, oil temp, water temp, fuel temp, oil pressure and fuel pressure, and then battery. And you can pull up any lap and see what they are, and you can pull up basically the track, the test laps toolbar, and that'll show you what they are over the entire session. So the next one is engine vitals. So along the same lines, except now we've got all the different laps in the session, and I can see, like, for fuel temp, for instance, what was the max temperature and how long was it at that max. And over here, obviously, we don't want a really low oil pressure, so I'm looking at the min of that. Min was 62 in this case, and that was for 14.3 seconds on this particular lap. Actually, yeah, on that lap, but over the whole session, we can see what all of them are. So that's really handy. Miles tracking, same type of report, except I've got math channels behind this that calculate the total miles, say on the front brake pads and the rear brake pads, and the total miles at wide open throttle. So if you want to know, how many miles your engine has on it, then every session you can get these numbers and then export them to Excel and just keep track of them that way, so that you constantly know how many miles are on different things that you want to keep track of, and it'll give you a better idea of when to replace them. If you have shock sensors, then shock movement. So these two are the it's the shocks going up and down, and this is the velocity of the shocks. I actually had one sensor that was bad, so I'm not getting the right rear. But again, you can pull up a track map and see, how much movement you have in your shocks and how fast you're moving. Sticking with how fast you're moving, you also have shock histograms. So this will help you, in the setup of your car, knowing, how much bump and rebound you have in your shocks can be a huge advantage. Shock scatter plots. So what these do is they tell you, if you have stiction in your shocks, that'll show up as like straight lines here. So it's a quick way to see the health of your shocks. And on the right here, we have the frequency of your shocks. So again, that's a tuning tool to help dial in your car. Oil pressure analysis, this kind of goes with the vitals. but we're looking at oil pressure in different scenarios. So this is oil pressure versus lateral G's, oil pressure versus longitudinal G's, which you can see it's kind of dropping off here for some reason. So that might be something to look into, although it didn't get below 60, so it's probably not an issue. Oil pressure versus RPM. So, by looking at the oil pressure in these scatter plots, you can quickly tell, if you've got a problem where the oil pressure is dropping off in certain areas. So when looking at the driver, I almost always pull up this one, and this is probably what most people are used to seeing. This is a lap compare profile. So engine RPM, speed, throttle, brake, steering, and then brake. I've got rear brake pressure and front brake pressure here. So yeah, you can just pull up a lap otherwise and quickly see what the differences are in those laps. Just like that. So now you can analyze deeper, like you can see speed difference here, etc. So again, this is what most people are used to seeing when they think of data. But I go beyond that. So next one is the driver profile. So quick ways of looking at how the driver is transitioning from from braking to cornering. You got a friction circle down here with different G's being highlighted in the gray. You got the longitudinal G's with G sum or combined G's. It's being called that here. Quick way to look at understeer, which is lateral G's versus steering input, and a quick way to look at how hard the driver is looking, lateral G's velocity versus steering velocity. And I'm not going to go into too much depth with these because it just takes a while to do that. So, but I can certainly give more background if you reach out to me. Driver smoothness. So this tells me how smooth the driver is. Again, is a good indicator of how hard he's working. Got steering velocity, throttle velocity, and brake velocity. Shifting analysis tells me how much he's using the engine to slow down the car. Obviously, these are the 4 gears in this car. And the blue is RPMs at over, I think, 50% throttle. Green is below 50% throttle. So again, you're seeing the green in this case overlap on the blue. You know that the driver is using the engine to slow the car. Throttle histogram, man, I use this one a lot. This is a great measuring tool to use. As you can see here on my fast lap, I was at full throttle, which I'm calling between 90 and 100% throttle for 62.6% of the lap. I was at 0 to 10% throttle, so effectively no throttle for 4.2% of the lap. So great measuring tool. You can say, okay, I want to increase my full throttle percentage by 2%. Go out, run your laps, come back, immediately check this. You'll know if you've done that or not. Handling analysis, lots of stuff in this one. So for this particular car, I was able to calculate understeer, and I can do that with your car as well. I just need the amount of steering at the wheels along with some other measurements off your car, and what a powerful tool that is. If you can analyze the understeer and oversteer in the data, it really helps figure out the setup that you should make to get the car handling to your liking. So that's the top, calculated steering versus actual steering. The green line here is vehicle corner radius. The red line is telling me how quickly the driver is getting to full throttle. This is an understeer map. We're going to expand that. And again, this is the same understeer map that we had before. It's lateral G's versus steering. So the next one is braking analysis. And this is analyzing your braking. So An interesting one here on the top is this yellow line. So that's slowing, and you can pick out, when the car is slowing down, um, even if you're not on the brakes. So I don't know if you can see it, but there's a um, little rise right here. So that means at that point on the track, the car actually slowed down a little bit, even though I wasn't on the brakes. And I'll pull up the track map and show exactly where that is. So, I had a little bit of a lift or something, or maybe it's a shift point. There's another one here. So, yeah, a little bit of a lift or something caused that slowdown. I can dig deeper into that and figure out exactly what that was. This is great if you have front and rear brake pressure. You can see what your percentages are. Now, this is only percentages based on what the sensors are determining as far as pressure. It's not determining load front and rear. So that's something to be aware of. The amount of pressure can change based on sizes of master cylinders and things like that. But once you know what the good balance is, you can quickly look at this and say, yeah, I need more front brake pressure, or I could probably use a little bit more rear. This is lateral G's versus brake pressure. So, when you dig deep into that, you can see how well you're transitioning off the brakes and getting into the corners. These I would need quite a bit of information, but this is basically showing you the theoretical amount of brake pressure based on a number of factors, such as the coefficient of friction of your brake pads, etc. But it tells you, whether or not you're getting the most out of your brakes. So in this case, you see I'm a little bit below the absolute max, but that may be where I need it to be in order for me not to lock up wheels. But again, this is something that once you have it every session, you can pick out the patterns and know whether or not you should make some changes to your brakes. So the next one is the understeer track map. Again, extremely powerful. I use this all the time. At VIR here, you can see that I had some understeer at turn 5 and a little bit at turn 4, and the car was loose at Oak Tree and had a little bit of understeer at the apex, but I was probably getting a little bit too much rotation there. A little bit of looseness coming into turn 1 as well, and then it went into understeer, so I had a little bit of looseness here, which I thought the car was actually handling pretty good. So I'm not seeing big amounts of understeer, but again, if I have the right information, I can create this for you too, and man, is that powerful. Coasting track map, use this one a lot too. When you're learning a new track, it's not unusual to have sections where you're coasting, and that is just low-hanging fruit. If you can get rid of that coasting, then you're automatically going to pick up time. You can see there's a little bit of coasting here between 6 and 7 at VIR. Now that could be a long shift. This is a shift here, I think. This is probably a little bit of coasting, just waiting for the front tires to get grip, and also that's when I had started to have that loose condition. So, if there's coasting, it's going to show up in red. So it's real easy to pick out, real easy to see where it's happening. Throttle track map. Again, you can look at squiggly lines, but I think the maps are really powerful. You can see that I was not full throttle all the way up through the S's. So yeah, that would be something for me to work on. I wasn't coasting, but I wasn't at full throttle either. And maybe that requires a setup change. So again, really easy to pick out. You can see I had a lift here. These are shifts right here. So, a lift here, wasn't able to stay full throttle there. So yeah, I use this a lot too. Brake track map, another one that is really great. So you're looking for the trail braking in. I can see I had a little bit of trail braking into turn one. Can also create a longitudinal G track map, and it effectively shows the same thing. And in fact, it even highlights the trail braking a little bit better. At the top of the hill, at the end of the back straight, going to turn 14, you see that I braked and then I got off the brakes and then braked again. Not the correct way to do that, but my car's handling just didn't give me the confidence to brake all the way in and get rid of this little bit of off the brakes period. Bogging track map. So if you tell me the RPM you don't want to be below, then I can create this bogging math channel for you and create a map so it shows that whether or not you're in too high of a gear. So like right here, I forget what the RPM was set at, but whatever it was, this red is showing that I was below that. So that might be a place where I want to stay in the lower gear a little bit longer. And speaking of gears, here's the gear track map. And so it tells me what gears I'm at where. So that's really handy. Okay, that's it. Hopefully you've seen how powerful these are. And for me to create these for you, all I need is a little bit of data. Just one session will do. Really just need to see your channel names so I can create the math channels that support these user profiles. And again, if you send me your data, I'll take a look at it and figure out what user profiles will work best for you. There's a lot of different things we can do, but it all depends on the data that you're gathering there. We do this for AIM, RS2 analysis, MOTEC, Pi Cosworth, and even WinTax, which is used in a number of the Italian race cars. So anyway, the code to get $50 off is PDA data. And just put that in after you hit the shop button when you select the product, and you're good to go. And don't forget, I can also analyze your data for you. I'll analyze your data for one session for $149. Small price to pay for some expert advice on your data. So hopefully you will take advantage of that as well. And happy racing.